All right, so we have reached the last level 4 video, and this is all about properties of translations, reflections, and rotations. So in number 1, it says, which of the following statements is true of the following rotation? So we know that a rotation happened. It looks like it happened around point E, and we are going to see if segments are equal that are given to us. So it says segment AD is equal to segment A prime D prime. This would be true. This is not just a property of rotations. This is an isometric property. Rotations are isometric transformations which preserve distances. Therefore, segment lengths in the pre-image and the image will be equal. All right. So then the next one, it says A to A prime. So that's this is equal to D to D prime. Clearly you can see that's false, but we do need to justify our reasoning. So it's false because it is a property of rotations that the lengths from the pre-image to image points are not equal. The closer the point is to the center of rotation, the less that pre-image point travels. So as we can see, that D is closer to the center of rotation, so it traveled a lot less than point A, which was a lot further from the center of rotation. All right, so moving on. So we are given triangle ABC, and it's mapped to triangle A prime, B prime, C prime, using just a single transformation. And it says, why couldn't this mapping have resulted by a single reflection? And so we need to look at the reflection properties, or review them at least. So with reflections, the distances between the pre-image points and the image points are not the same. So A is not equal, or A to A prime is not equal to B to B prime. And the orientation reverses, and then points on the line of reflection will not move. So keep those in mind as we're going throughout this problem here. So if I look at my distances, I can see that A to A prime is not equal to B to B prime. So that is a property of reflection, so that's not going to help us prove why a reflection did not happen. Maybe orientation will. So if I start at point A on my pre-image and move clockwise around this figure, I go to point B, then to point C, then to point A again. So starting at A prime on my image figure and moving clockwise, I go from A prime to B prime to C prime back to A prime. Since they are in the same order, what that means is that the orientation is the same between the pre-image and the image, which we know in a reflection that the orientation is not the same. So we can explain that this is not a single reflection because the orientation of the figure is the same between the pre-image and image. So it says, what transformation must have mapped these two triangles together? Well, if it's not a reflection, this would not be a translation, because point A would have had to travel a certain amount of units to the right and then a certain amount of units up, whereas point B just traveled a certain amount of units to the right. And in a translation, each of the points travel the same exact distance and the same exact direction. And so a translation would have not been the best answer. Instead, this is a rotation. Because the distances from the pre-image points to the image points are not the same. This cannot be a translation because not all points moved the same distance and in the same direction. All right. And so that brings us to the end of the level 4, which the level 4, again, is all about the properties of the transformation. So let's just quickly review some of the properties. So for translations, all the points are going to move the same distance in the same direction. So if point A moves to the left, to the right, point B is going to move to the right. If A moves to the right and up, point B is going to move to the right and up, and so forth. And since they always move the same distance in the same direction, that would mean that A to A prime and B to B prime are equal, but they're also parallel to each other. And AB to A prime B prime are equal, but they're also parallel to each other. So if I were to connect all 4 of those lines together, the shape that would be created is a parallelogram. The orientation and translation stays the same, and there are no special points because all the points move the same distance in the same direction. Looking at reflection properties. The distances from the pre-image points to the image points are not the same. So what that means is that A to A prime is not equal to B to B prime. However, the line of reflection is the perpendicular bisector between the pre-image and image points. So line M bisects A to A prime and also is perpendicular to A to A prime, which means that every point is going to travel perpendicularly to the line of reflection. The orientation of your figure reverses always in reflections, and then points on the line of reflection will not move. They'll stay on the line of reflection. And then our last transformation, which was rotations. The distances between the pre-image and image points are not the same. So A to A prime and B to B prime are not equal. And the orientation of your figure does stay the same always. And then points on the center of rotation would not move. So keep those properties in mind as you are completing the level 4 practices, because you will have to critically think about what types of transformations happened with the shapes that are given to you.